Hey there, everybody. Welcome to a special live post-game show version of the only podcast. We're coming to you right after uh, Michigan State just got through beating Ohio State in the Big Ten tournament, and that came after the hockey team lost to Michigan. So we're going to try something new here. If you guys are anybody sticking around, I know it's kind of late. It looks like 3:30 or so. We're going to try to, if you guys got any comments in the reaction thread, questions, whatever, we're going to try to make this interactive, so it should be some fun. So I think Jeremy is going to join us to talk about hockey, but it doesn't look like he is here yet. So we're going to, I guess we're obviously going to start with basketball here, but Spartans come away with a, 76-67 final score, a game that Spartans really took control of early, never really let up. They didn't give up. I don't know if they trailed the whole game. I'm not quite sure. Pulled away in the second half, went to the prevent offense, and what typically happens, but they got a little bit more aggressive after that, hit enough free throws, and held on. So I guess first off, as we're kind of looking at this game, Joe, what are your first off your takeaways from this thing?
Well, this team still is frustrating, even in wins, and you could tell in the post-game interview that Tom Izzo gave that he felt that same way. It's impressive the way that they share the ball and the lead that they were able to get out to with about 5 minutes left. There was a 17-point lead. So, I mean, that's impressive against what's a pretty good, if not very good, Ohio State team. And they did a great job defending D'Angelo Russell again. But yeah, I mean, it's a team that it has put together almost all of the pieces except one, which is just sort of running normal offense down the stretch of games. So to me, that seems like a fixable problem, right? But
right, that's
I mean, yet. But
KJ made a point on Twitter. Free throws, missing free throws. There's nothing Izzo can do about that. But it's Izzo's call when they stop, because it was very clear there was a point there. It was very clear when they stopped running offense and started just trying to burn clock. And what happened was Trice or Tum Tum turned it over, Valentine turned it over, and then a 5-second call, and all of a sudden it was a 9-point game. Yeah, I mean, that's especially with the way this team has struggled in half-court offense. They kind of freeze a bit when in key moments. So I don't know why you'd want to, magnify that. I know Gehring Jay come to here. Well, this will stop slowing the game down with the lead. I mean, we've said this before. It's noticeable partly because of the free throw issues. If your team can't make free throws, it's going to make every coach look bad. Along with the fact that opponents seem to hit every desperation shot when mounting their comebacks. Shannon Scott hit a three. He hit 3 threes in this game, and has 5 threes against MSU on the year. He has, I think, 17 the whole rest of the year. He's about 27% three-point shooter. But he went 3 for 6 today. He went 2 for 4 in the other game. And it's just kind of how things fall. And it's curious what would have happened if it looked like Dad might have pulled D'Angelo Russell out there. I think he might have thought the game was over right before Ohio State went on its run. He sat down, pulled the tape off, and it was almost a sign of game's over. I don't know if that was Mata. I don't know if that was Russell, but he did come back in. But MSU did get aggressive at the end there. Nairn drove, led to a Dawson dunk, which was good. They didn't just sit there and get fouled, and I think that's how they have to do it. Now, you mentioned their defense on Russell. For the most part, when Nairn's out there, he's matched up with Russell. I know MSU does a lot of switching, so it's not always Nairn on him. But in 2 games, Russell went 7 for 16 in this one, and he went 4 for 13 in the first game. And that's an all Big Ten player, going to be an NBA pick next year, and that's a tremendous defense from
team defense, really. Absolutely. And what was interesting, too, is down the stretch there in that last 5 minutes, Marvin Clark was getting run in a lineup where it was Dawson at the 5, Clark at the 4, Valentine at the 3, Trice at the 2, and Nairn at the 1. And I actually really like that lineup, and I like it down the stretch. I mean, I know why Izzo went with that lineup in this particular
Because Clark is
situation.
24 for 32 from the free throw line is why.
Well, that's probably part of it. That's part of the reason I like that lineup. But
Yeah.
I think more likely he went to that lineup just because Ohio State wasn't playing Amir Williams or Trey McDonald, and so Izzo, thought, well, and to his credit, I think this makes sense. If you put Clark out there and Dawson as well, you can switch any screens, which really simplifies this defense in particular. And you saw there were a couple plays there where Clark ended up on D'Angelo Russell, and I thought that went pretty well. I mean, Russell hit a really difficult three right in Clark's face at one point, but that's sort of to be expected. But I like that lineup. I think that's a lineup that can create some issues for opponents when you're playing Dawson at the
Right.
five.
I think you've talked about that before. I think maybe when Dawson was out, that at least when Clark's in the game, he really stretches defenses out a lot more.
And also, I mean, if you don't have to worry about an opponent five scoring on you, in a way that Dawson couldn't handle himself or Clark couldn't handle either, it just gives you a lot of ability to get out and run in transition, and there's just a lot of athleticism there. So I liked that in that last 5 minutes. I mean, at first, it's sort of when Ohio State was getting back in the game, it looked like it might not have been the best of decisions, or just sort of wasn't doing a whole lot, but near the end there, I think it made a lot more sense because you had a lot more ability to sort of break that press that Ohio State was using, as well as hit free throws and stretch the floor a little bit. So I liked that. I mean, I'm always a Clark fan, but
you have been. Jeremy, are you there?
Yeah, I should be here.
All right, cool. So we got three people here. We got some questions here I figure we'll answer. Garing J, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but he or she, I guess, asked, do you think Ohio State's back-to-back affected them? And it's an interesting question because the four teams that advanced through to the semifinals are the four teams that got the double bye. I don't know if it affected them that much. They did play a really tough physical game against Minnesota, but at the same time, you're coming off 4 or 5 days of rest. I don't know if a single back-to-back affected them. I think it might have affected a team like Penn State, who was on a back-to-back-to-back. But I don't know if it was that. There didn't seem to be in the first half. There was not very much defensive intensity from Ohio State. MSU was getting layups at will, partly because of the great passing. But did it affect them? I don't know. What do you guys think?
I agree. I don't think it made a major impact. I mean, if you look at the sort of stats that you would think would sort of correlate with energy level, I mean, Ohio State did a pretty good job on the boards. MSU, we did out rebound them to a small degree after getting out rebounded by them in the first game. In regular conference play, but those types of things, to me, it doesn't seem like they were dead. I mean, they made a late run in the second half. You wouldn't expect a team that was tired to make sort of that second half run once they had gotten down by 17. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. Maybe did it take their legs out a little bit? They did start out 0 for 5 from 3. You could make some arguments either way.
Yeah, Jeremy. I guess your thoughts on that and your thoughts on the game kind of as a whole. Did you catch it? I know you were watching the hockey game. Were you able to catch the basketball game?
Yeah, I caught mostly the second half. Went out and met some friends at a bar after the hockey game, so I kind of saw as well as you can see at a bar where you're kind of catching it off in the background. But as far as the rest thing, I always argue on the other side of that, the rest versus rust argument, where I think that if they did have tired legs, you can almost even that out with any rust that MSU has from not playing yesterday. So I didn't think that was anything that slowed Ohio State down or should diminish the win for MSU at all. I think it's kind of actually an anomaly that the 4 teams they got through are on the double bye, but I think that's also a little bit tied to who won the first couple of rounds. With I think if Iowa was playing Purdue instead of Penn State, I think maybe Iowa pulls that off. Stuff like that. So the whole game as a whole, like I said, I mainly caught it at a bar, so my analysis is probably going to be pretty light on it. But Yeah, I wouldn't really buy into the Ohio State, being tired towards the end, especially because they played much better in the second half than the first. So.
Yeah, that's true too. Max Bar alum asks if MSU beats Maryland, what's their seed? They seem to be a 7 across the board, I think, coming into today. So you figure this game, at least the win today, at least keeps them at a 7, maybe moves them up to a 6. Now, if they beat Maryland, maybe they do get up to a 6. If they somehow win out and get to Wisconsin, maybe that becomes a 5. I think 5 is probably the ceiling here, and I think after this, I think 7 is the minimum, and at least right now where they're likely sitting. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that this win solidified a 7, a win against Maryland, just because of Maryland's profile with the committee and just general win-loss record gives us a chance at a 6, and then a win against Wisconsin just because of where Wisconsin is would be a tall task. But if it happened, I think now we're talking about a 5 seed, right? So that's pretty exciting. I mean, to be able to just avoid the 8-9 in that first weekend makes this win in and of itself really valuable.
Yeah. And actually, Max Bar alum, that was not the pixelated dog that was barking. That was somebody else's dog. I actually got a bunch of dogs with me here, but
that's probably me actually. So,
yeah. So looking at this game again, Dawson. I thought Dawson had a quiet, really good game. I felt like Valentine was kind of maybe the focus. He did finish with 23 points, but Dawson. 14 points on 14 shots, 5 offensive rebounds, 7 assists, 3 blocks, no turnovers. Just a really, almost quietly, really solid game from him. There was that really cool sequence where I think Costello got a block, Dawson immediately got a block, and then it went down and turned into a Dawson dunk. Who stuck out to you, Joe, as maybe in terms of the players? What do you think?
So I thought the one guy that stuck out to me in the opposite direction was Bryn Forbes. I was pretty disappointed with his play the whole.
I didn't know if he stuck. He didn't really stick out to me because I didn't really notice him. I was surprised when I saw he took 4 shots. I don't remember one of them.
Yeah, I thought. I mean, he just looked off the whole game. Every shot that he took looked sort of belabored in some way. He missed that layup where he was looking for contact and didn't get it.
He did have the one kind of fast break play where I think he either got fouled or it was a goaltender. I don't quite remember that. I don't think they called anything, and it kind of started an Ohio State run. But he's, I think, 2 for 14 in his last 2 games, which is obviously really bad for a player like him. And that's not far removed from where he single-handedly helped MSU cover in the game at Wisconsin. So
yeah, I would say that the other guy who was for a stretch there sort of had a loud game. If you're calling Dawson's 14-8-7 a quiet 14-8-7, I think Alvin Ellis, who had 2 points, a rebound, an assist, a steal, and 2 blocks, was about as loud of a 2-point game as you can have, just because the 2 points came on a dunk, which was great.
I didn't even know that was him. I thought that was Clark.
And he played great defense. I mean, his hands were very quick the whole game. I've been down on him pretty much all season, but he's really come around. He and Clark both these last couple games have played really well. And Ellis, especially during a couple stretches, was playing really good defense against D'Angelo Russell, which I thought was particularly valuable just to sort of get Russell frustrated, right, to take him out of his game to some extent. And I think that worked. Yeah, I mean, that's another guy who stuck out to me in some ways. And also, like, Gavin Schilling can't get a break, right? Like,
he doesn't. I don't even think Costello does either. They seem to get the most every time the ticky-tack falls. I don't know if Costello has ever agreed with a foul called against him. And I saw someone tweeted that I guess the ref said learn the rules before you yell at me about something. So he might be doing something wrong that he doesn't know he's doing wrong. So
And the rules that they have in the post that have changed recently that are all really strange, right? Like you're not really supposed to put your hand on on an offensive player that's in the post at all, although that happens pretty often anyways. So I mean, I don't know. I wonder how much of that is coaching and how much of it is just him trying to be aggressive. I mean, there's something going on there that I don't understand totally, but we didn't see Wallenman a whole lot in this game either.
no, we did see him though. McDonald pulled down 2 offensive rebounds in the first half, and Costello got pulled each time that happened, and the second time was for Wallenman. Yeah, we didn't see. I don't think we saw him at all in the second half, but I think it's partly because Costello and Schilling were able to stay out of foul trouble, and I think he played in the first half kind of to make a point to Costello. You know who I thought didn't have a good game, and even the box score I don't know necessarily. He finished strong, but Travis Trice finished with 18 points, 5 for 12 shooting, 4 assists, but 3 turnovers. But up until maybe that stretch where he scored 8 straight points for MSU, but even including that, he didn't barely take a good shot. Like he was forcing a lot of 3-pointers. Even the back-to-back ones he made, I didn't think were very good shots. One of them was from a mile away. The other was sort of on a fast break when they probably could have gotten a layup. And then he did start to drive it and get some baskets late, which was big for them. But he seemed just kind of off all game. In the offense, seemed to not really be moving when Nairn was out. Did you guys think anything of Trice at all?
I sort of felt the opposite way in a lot of ways. So there was a stretch there where Trice was out in the second half, in sort of the middle of the second half, where I thought that the offense had gotten pretty stagnant with Nairn and Forbes and in the game with no Trice, and Trice was a little sloppy right when he came back in. But then he went on that run where he had those 2 threes, and they were forced shots to some extent, but you can't be too upset with those. And then he had the lay-in, and then he had that acrobatic layup, on a couple possessions later as well. I thought he started out slowly. His assist-to-turnover ratio wasn't as good as it normally is. He had 3 assists and 3 turnovers. But in terms of getting that lead out to 17 points. He was really instrumental in doing that.
Yeah, he did start that, but it just felt like his shot selection was really unusually poor. Like it felt noticeable to me that it seemed like he was constantly just looking for a 3 a lot. I don't know but I think he started 1 for 5, in which case he would have finished 4 for 7. So probably the first 30 minutes, I think he struggled, but he was a big part of the end there, pushing that lead to what it was, and making free throws. He went 5 for 7, while the team went 11 for 18 total. So
yeah, and we haven't even mentioned Denzel Valentine's name, who threw up a 23-8-7. Right? I mean, that guy is just quietly just a total monster, right? I mean, he basically does everything, a little bit of everything, and really in stretches where Trice struggles, like he was struggling a little bit in the first half, Valentine can really take over, and knows how to pick the spots correctly to do that, which I think is really an interesting skill. And I don't remember a particularly boneheaded turnover from Valentine in this game, which usually he's good for at least one of those, where you just go, "What are you even thinking, Denzel?" But he didn't even do that this game, which was pretty impressive.
He makes so many entry passes that are like just kind of go unnoticed. Like he'll zip one into Costello on the baseline, and it doesn't lead to a shot or something. But with an offense that so often in the half court just sits around the 3-point line, he'll just zip one in there, and it just kind of kickstarts, things. And it's such a valuable skill to be able to get the ball inside to kind of get an inside-out thing going.
Yeah, I agree. He's weirdly underrated, and the announcers, I forget if it was Raftery or if it was the play-by-play guy, but we're talking about like how is it that Valentine is just a third team All Big Ten player, and I agree with that completely. I think he should probably be a second team.
Yeah, I mean, we said that when I think a lot of people said that when the teams came out. Jeremy, who stuck out to you?
It was actually, I was going to say Valentine up until getting it brought up there. He really stuck out to me a lot for kind of getting back to his game, where I know Joe mentioned in the preview up to this game that it was going to be kind of nice with Trice being more of a role today, that he'd get more back into his typical role of distributing and not being relied upon for a lot of points. And he ended up being the leading scorer, but it was nice to see him have one of those Valentine lines where he's kind of contributing in so many ways. So he stood out, and then Trice, the thing that stood out for me was the 4 assist to 3 turnover thing. That kind of stood out, seeing him make some turnovers, which he's usually pretty good with the ball, I feel like. So we'd like to see a better game out of him tomorrow, and I think him, especially in the Maryland game, I think Trice is going to be someone that we should, he has to have a pretty good game for us to get past Maryland. So
we've got a question that demands be answered, and that's Obama tried to make us lose. What does this mean for 2016? I don't know. I don't know.
Obama.
He
picked us last year, right? So he's kind of a jinx if he picks us.
Oh, that's true. I had thought about that the other day. So
he's kind of a jinx. So I guess we should hope he picks against us in the first round, and we'll see where we go.
Yeah. Now someone points out, and we'll wrap up the Ohio State game here. What was Mata arguing about at the end? I think he was arguing that they called the kick ball because, I don't know if you can review a kick ball. I think you can only review it. That was such a strange. It took 8 minutes. It took 5 minutes for them to review, and then they decided to call kickball, and then they decided to review it again because Mata complained about it. Now, what happened, what I thought was pretty clear what happened, was kickball, then Valentine kind of got slide tackled into the ball. The ball clearly went off of Valentine. Now, in these situations, the refs, a lot of times, if they realize they messed up a call in this process, they'll give it to the same team. They won't call it on who it went out of bounds on just because of what they messed up on earlier. So I thought it was going to be MSU ball out of the baseline because they didn't call the kick ball and they didn't call the foul. Instead, they give it to MSU out of the sideline. I'm pretty sure is what happened, and I think that's what Mata was upset about. And if you're Mata, it went off of MSU, so it's pretty clear. It went off MSU, so I can understand why he was trying to complain. But it was kind of a weird, annoying sequence. He said coming in the second half that was the most physical game he'd been a part of, which I found interesting. I think the Buckeyes only had 4 fouls in the first half there, and Spartans think at 9 or so.
Yeah, so that seemed like a really weird statement to me too, because I'm just thinking about that Purdue game from a week and a half ago. That game was like made this game look like pee-wee ball.
Izzo said earlier. Izzo said after the game at Illinois that was one of the most physical games he'd seen. So it was a little surprising because it didn't feel all that physical, at least compared to maybe what MSU's used to.
Yeah, I think Thad Matta's got some magic that he works with the refs, because back to when he was coaching at Butler even, his teams just don't get called for fouls very often. The foul rate of his teams is way out of whack with how aggressive they are in terms of steal rates and things of that nature. So I don't know. Maybe that's one of his tactics for handling the refs, is saying something, like this is one of the most physical games I've ever seen or something like that, because it just doesn't even feel like this is one of the most physical MSU teams I've seen in the last 5 years, right? Like, I don't know. They try hard, and I give them credit for that, but I don't get that statement at all, especially coming out of that Purdue game. That Purdue game looked like a football game in some ways, right?
Yeah. We got some breaking news here, and that's Texas Southern has qualified for the NCAA tournament.
Oh wow!
They won, which we kind of brought up when MSU lost to them earlier in the year. They actually only made the. It's kind of funny. They didn't win the conference tournament yet. They won their semifinal game, but the other two teams in the other semifinal were both ineligible for the NCAA tournament. So Texas Southern is in the tournament, even though they haven't won their
their conference tournament, the SWAC.
So, I mean, it's still a bad loss for MSU. I think they're still in the 200s at Ken Pom, but it's a little thing that you can point to, I guess.
Hang your head on to some extent.
So next is Maryland, about 3:30. I think CBS. Spartans have lost twice to the Terps. They lost in overtime at home in a game that was ugly in the first half, and the Spartans had it won in the second half, and then they kind of did their thing late in games. Didn't foul, called a timeout before a layup. We kind of remember how that went. Spartans lost in overtime. They also went to College Park and got beat up pretty good. Terps hit a lot of threes. My biggest key to the game, I think, is to make the final score in the double digits. Because Maryland's now 18-1 in games decided by 10 points or fewer, and I think 11-0 in games decided by 6 points or fewer. So they're probably going to go win the national championship, and not even be ranked in the top 10 in KenPom or something like that. They're looking at a 3, maybe a 2 seed. Even though all the metrics put them kind of on the same level as MSU, Iowa, Purdue, Ohio State, but it's a team that clearly is beatable, but because they've got the will to win and the grit and the clutch and all the other stuff, they're
not the mathgetball team, that's for sure.
Yeah. What do you think?
Hashtag fancy stats.
So I think what'll be really interesting to watch is it seemed like in that game at College Park that Maryland had sort of figured out the antidote to the MSU offense, which is just running certain guys off of the three-point line. And so it'll be really interesting to see if they run that same type of defense and sort of how MSU deals with it. It seems like this MSU team at this point versus earlier in the season is sharing the ball a little bit better, and guys have a better idea of what their roles are. So that'll be really interesting to watch. And also, I'm just hoping it's not nearly as ugly as that game at East Lansing. Like, that game was just hard to watch for basically every reason. I mean, just turnovers all over the place and horrible shots, and then at the very end with the Izzo timeout and all of that stuff. I mean, that was really painful. I'm just hoping for less pain. I think that's all I'm hoping for here.
Jeremy, what do you think? Jeremy, are you there?
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, it's looking tomorrow. I mean, I'm just gonna go on Joe's analysis that says that Maryland's been lucky all year, top in team luck, and this is the matchup we wanted. So, yeah, I agree with Joe though. I hope it's definitely more along the lines of that second game in College Park, because that first one was just so ugly to watch. And I think tomorrow, I think Travis Trice, like I said earlier, is going to be the key to getting a win tomorrow. So I think, chances are, who knows, playing on back-to-back, but I think Janet.
So, about 3:30, CBS, MSU, Maryland. Actually, I was going to look up the number here. It's MSU's what? They won the Big Ten tournament in 2012 and 2014. And what happened in 2013? Who did they lose to? That was one in Chicago.
We lost to Ohio State that year.
Okay.
We beat Iowa. We made a big comeback against Iowa.
Right, the Iowa game.
Where Appling had that monster dunk in that Iowa game on Friday night, and then we lost a heartbreaker to Ohio State.
Right. So ever since 2012, when people decided to think that, when people change their mind, It used to be, Izzo doesn't care about the Big Ten tournament. And then, they care this year. And now they've won 2 out of 3 and reached the semis in the other 2. Or 2 out of 4 reached the semis in the other 2 now. So they got a pretty good record in the Big Ten tournament. And actually, this win gave Izzo the most Big Ten tournament wins. I know he was tied with Mata, although Izzo did have a 7-year head start on Thad Mata when it comes to that number. So that'll be that tomorrow. This should wrap up kind of the hoops talk. We'll hit hockey real quick here. Spartans lost 5-3 at home to Michigan. They fall to 3rd place in the Big Ten, 2 points behind both Michigan and Minnesota, and the Spartans go to Yost at Michigan tomorrow for the final game of the regular season. They've still got an outside shot at the Big Ten. They need to win at Michigan, along with a Minnesota loss in whatever form. If they lose in OT or regulation, it'd be an MSU title. If they lose in shootout, it'd be a co-title. But first, obviously, MSU has to win. Spartans went down 2-0 early in that game. They got 2 kind of weird goals. One was a rebound, and the goalie stood up for some reason, and Keller knocks it in. Second one, goalie doesn't come out on a loose puck. Keller dives on his stomach and knocks it in, which was a really sweet play. I'm curious if that's actually going to be on SportsCenter top 10. That was an amazing goal. Then Michigan makes it 3-2. Then MSU gets another lucky goal when the pass in front deflects off Michigan's stick twice while they're trying to clear it, goes in 3-3. But then when there was about 7 minutes left, from that the Spartans just kind of died. Like they just seemed to have no legs at all. And Michigan starts carrying the play, and then they finally get a breakthrough, get a goal, make it 4-3. I think about 5 minutes left. Then empty net to make it 5-3. Jeremy, this was obviously a big one for the Spartans. What were your takeaways?
Yeah, the biggest thing I took away from this is the first game since Travis Walsh has really been out with his broken jaw that I think it really kind of sabotaged the Spartans' chances tonight. They went with 5 defensemen. I mean, they dressed Tanner Sorensen, who has played forward all his life, to play defense because it was senior night, and put him back there. But really, those last 10 minutes of the third period, you could see the 5 defenseman rotation was starting to just wear out on them, especially against a team like Michigan that's going to come with a forecheck all night long. So that was.
I didn't catch that. Thanks for letting me know that. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. It was weird. I know. Anastas at his press conference mentioned that suspended players Carson Gadd and Dylan Pavlik were practicing with the team again this week. And I saw somebody tweet out that Carson Gadd was dressed. Then the line chart from MSU had Tanner Sorensen technically as the 6th defenseman, but I don't think he even took a shift tonight. He was basically dressed as a senior night, kind of kudos. But I don't. Do
you think that backfired on him? Do you think that was?
It's hard to know because, I mean, it wasn't like they gave away a defenseman spot. Chris Knutsen's been playing defense ever since Walsh went down, but I think in the Minnesota game that they put Knutsen in after Walsh broke his jaw in the Thursday night game, I think Knutsen played maybe, 6 shifts on Saturday, and against Wisconsin he got a few shifts. So he maybe saves you a couple of shifts, but in the end, it probably doesn't completely matter. It's more just if Travis Walsh is in the lineup more than putting Tanner Sorensen in.
Yeah.
So I think it showed more that Travis Walsh was really missed tonight. And to be honest, they had no business really being in that game.
Right, that's what I was going to say. I mean, they got 3. I mean, 2 of them were some of the strangest or luckiest goals you'll see.
Yeah.
But, I mean, credit to Keller for. I mean, he scored on 2 of them, but.
Right.
He put the puck in the net on 2 of them. You're not going to see a stranger hat trick than that. But I've kept track. That was Michigan's only 3rd win at Munn since 2005-2006. 3rd regular season win at Munn. They did lose twice in the
playoffs.
Twice in the playoffs that one year. But it's always been a tough place for Michigan, and stuff like what happened tonight happens, but it wasn't enough, and it just felt like when you kind of got to the second half of that third period, it was noticeable just kind of how much the Spartans died. They started having long shifts. They couldn't get the puck out. They couldn't change. And when they got the goal to take the lead at 4-3, it just felt like it had been coming.
Yeah, and the weird part was it almost seemed like they were playing an NHL style, where in the last 6 to 7 minutes you're just trying to get to overtime and get a point, which is weird in the college game because you don't get a point for an overtime loss. But it almost seemed like they were going into a shell, just wanting to get to overtime and then play the 5 minutes and see if they could get to a shootout and get a point out of it, even if you lose the shootout. Which again, with Hildebrand against Nagelbort, you probably win the shootout and get 2 points. But it was a strange last 7 or 8 minutes. Can't really explain it. Can't really blame anyone either. Preseason, if you just stack up the talents of what's out there, you expect Michigan to probably control the game. So,
do you think they have any chance at Yost?
You want to say no, but I mean, Zach Naylor and Steve Racine have just been so awful in net for Michigan that I think they give State a chance. And honestly, Jake Hildebrand probably had a pretty bad game tonight. Even though he made some great saves, he never loses rebounds the way that he was losing rebounds tonight. They were putting him in his glove, and he wasn't even making it on the first catch. And they kind of they showed him after the game, and you could just see on his face he knew that not that necessarily any of the goals were goals that he should have stopped, but a lot of times I think Michigan probably could have put some pucks in the net on rebounds that he wasn't his normal self on. So you want to say that we don't have a shot against them at Yost, but again, Jake Hildebrand going up against whoever plays for Michigan, that's a decided advantage if Hildebrand's on his game tomorrow. So basically the big thing for State fans to look for is if you get a win, you'll get a bye in the Big Ten regardless of what Minnesota does. And if you don't get a win, you just got to hope that Minnesota goes out and beats Penn State, and then you get Wisconsin in the first round in the Big Ten tournament. So.
Right, and then you get Wisconsin and then possibly Minnesota. So I'm not going to give them much of a chance. But that said, taking first place into the final weekend, I think has been a remarkable stretch for this year's team. And I think Anastas over the last 4 or 5 weeks kind of quieted a lot of people who had been kind of questioning things for quite a while.
I'd never, been as interested or engaged in a college hockey game as I was tonight. So there's that. I think that's, and I don't think I'm the only one either, right? I think that there's some other people who were captivated by this game and the game tomorrow as well. Although the overlap between the basketball and the hockey games tomorrow is really unfortunate.
Right. What time is the hockey game again?
5.
Yeah, 5 o'clock. So.
5 games at 5. Basketball is probably closer to 4.
Yeah. So
actually, no. Wisconsin plays quick games, so maybe that'll be close to 3:30. But yeah, that'll be a tough one to hit both if you're going to try to watch it.
Yeah, you could probably catch the last 2 periods or something.
Yeah. So there's a question. What was Mata bitching to Izzo about in the handshake line? I didn't see it. I don't know. I know MSU kind of dunked a little bit toward the end, but I don't know. I don't think Mata's the kind of coach that would complain about that. He might have been talking about the kickball situation. I don't know. I don't know if what it was, but I'm curious to see if he's going to shave. Apparently he hadn't shaved. It wasn't going to after the Wisconsin game, which actually that was a kind of cool coaching thing there. So every time they look at him, they're reminded of the Wisconsin game because of the beard. I thought that's kind of a cool touch. Obviously, it didn't work, but I thought it was an interesting idea, at least.
What I've done for the last several years is grown an NCAA tournament beard. So, starting at the beginning of the NCAA tournament, I won't shave until MSU loses. So, as it turns out, it's kind of first of all, I suck at growing facial hair, so there's that. But then also, it ends up being weird because it's basically like, if they make it out of a particular weekend, then you end up with like a week-long beard. If they make it out of a second weekend, then it's just one more week. So it ends up being like, it's not as cool as the like hockey playoff beard because it's just not as you know, it
That's
just
not as long.
takes
You might be done after a week, or a week. It's only a 3-week tournament.
Right. So it's I mean, still though, I think I like that I could have an excuse for growing a beard, but we'll see. I might not do it this year. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. So
spend a few years in Saskatchewan, it'll come out better for you, Joe. Right? So.
Yeah, it's really bad. It grows in really white trashy looking, and it's not good.
So the updated, not quite updated log 5 not including the MSU Ohio State game. It says based on Ken Palm, MSU had a 58% chance of reaching the finals compared to 42% for Maryland. So, but we already kind of knew that the analytics don't like Maryland because of all those close ones. They've won 8 straight. Their last 8 games have all been wins by 10 points or fewer, which is crazy. And they're like the ultimate. Right now, they're the ultimate analytic troll right now with just the clutchness and everything. And Scott Van Pelt's trying to tell people they're better than people think, but he knows they're maybe not as good as. Really fascinating. It's a really fascinating team this year because that's a team I will have absolutely no faith in picking to reach like the Sweet 16.
Right.
Yet watch them reach the Final Four, winning games on one possession, like MSU did in 2010 when they reached the Final Four on all those one possession games. Wouldn't be surprised to see them do that or something.
Yeah, it's tough because it's really hard to overlook the loss by 19 to Indiana at Indiana, the loss by 24 to Ohio State in Columbus, and then the loss by 16 at Iowa as well. I mean,
at the same time, they did beat Wisconsin and barely anybody's been able to do that. So it counts for something, but it's another one of those ones that came down to the very end.
Right. That's absolutely true. And then, I mean, that's not even to mention like they beat Iowa State on a neutral court by 9. That's a pretty good win. So, yeah.
So, that'll probably do it for us. I know we kind of did this late. It's already past midnight, so wasn't sure how many people would be involved here, but got a decent amount of questions. I don't think, Joe, did you say you're not going to be available?
Yeah, tomorrow I've got some family stuff, so I won't be there tomorrow night. But
I don't think we'll do this tomorrow then because the hockey game also isn't. The hockey game will be going on while the basketball game ends, so it wouldn't be a good time. And say MSU makes the tournament final, you'd have Selection Sunday coming up, in which case maybe we'll just do a regular podcast in the middle of next week. But maybe next weekend in the NCAA tournament, depending on when they're playing, maybe we'll try this again. If you guys liked it at all, let us know. If you didn't like it, you're probably not in the comment section anymore. But we'll leave this up. Maybe we'll throw it in Joe, if you want to throw this YouTube, just embed this YouTube video in the recap. Whoever does it, just another way if people give it a listen, get any more feedback if you guys liked it at all. So thanks for sticking around if you guys did, and for Joe and Jeremy for being here. This was fun. So I'm Chris. And I don't know if we introduced ourselves at the beginning, but I'm Chris Vanini, former managing editor, now pretty much podcaster. Joe is our managing editor. Jeremy is our hockey guy, if you didn't pick up on that. But check out theonlycolors.com if you're assuming you are already, and got some good stuff. Have plenty of stuff up this weekend still, so check that all out. Thanks for listening, everybody, and we will see you later.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.